You are listening to the Become a Guitarist Today podcast with Adam Roach.
Hey everybody, this is Brett Garcett, and you are listening to the Become a Guitarist Today podcast with Adam Roach.
All right, here we are. Welcome, Steve and Chris. Yeah, now let's see if I get this order right. The author of these two great books.
There we go.
Yeah, there you go.
They go well together.
Everything you ever need to know about the man, right?
That's right. It's all,
pretty much almost every word he told the guitar community almost. So about 90% of it. So
exactly. Not a whole lot left out there that you and I didn't get, Chris.
True.
Yeah.
Couldn't have done without you, Steve. You know.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, that's awesome. But no, today we're here to talk about this one, which I actually just received yesterday. Now, yeah, I must say it's a funny, weird book, isn't it? I know a lot of people spoke about the pages, but it's a really weird feel.
Yeah, it's kind of like a journal or something like that, like a well-worn, notebook. Yeah, it's kind of a lot of people thought it was just messed up, but it's intentional. So that's the thing.
Exactly, and there's a word for it. I've never heard the word before to describe that kind of process. But anyway, yeah. So
we're here to talk about the famous song, the unfinished / between us two.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, who would like to start?
So Adam reaches out to me and says, "Hey, I'm listening to Chris on Jeff's show, and he just mentioned something about hearing that little bit in your audiobook and recognizing it as the unfinished track." And I flipped out. I go, I didn't quite understand what that was. So let's start there. I mean, did you recognize that the first time you heard it in the audiobook? How did you stumble across it? Because if you don't find that, Chris, Adam said ultimately maybe he would have recalled something like that, but it was way past me, and not a single other person who's read the book and have the audiobook have heard, that's the unfinished track. So how did it come to you, Chris, and how did you recognize it, and what were your feelings about discovering that?
Oh man, it was a revelation, but it starts off actually about 3.5 years ago when Brad Tolinski and I were working on the Eruption book, and we were doing interviews with other people, and we got to hear unreleased tracks from the follow-up to the Van Halen 3 album with Gary Cherone. And in the midst of that, which I didn't find out until just recently, was this other song, which wasn't for the 1999 follow-up album, but that got sent to us. So I have an audio copy of that song, and I've been living with it for the last 3.5 years. I was always under the impression that the song that I had has Gary's vocals on it, and it has that instrumental backing that we hear on Unfinished that Alex released. And I had been under the impression all this time, until very, very recently, that it was a track that was done for the 1999 album. Now, that's a mistake. That's completely wrong. And what happened is when Alex was starting to release little snippets of the music, I'm going, that's that song that I have, and I'm telling people, oh man, Alex is going to release this song, but it's not a blasting him and Ed did, but it's from this 1999 album. Again, that's wrong. So anyways, more and more snippets come out. And then Stephen, you so graciously sent me a copy of your audiobook about a month ago. And I'm listening to your interview. I have to say, I love that interview that you do with Ed. I think it's chapter 52, I believe 52 or 56. I forget which one, but it's one of my favorite things. So I was working at Guitar Player magazine at the time. Guitar World magazine. I was working at Guitar World, and you were writing, and you did that interview with Ed. And it came into the office, and it was such a great thing because we had this Ed said, Sammy said back and forth thing going on about the whole scenario. And it's wonderful. It's just a great piece of rock history. And Ed's complaining about Sammy and his lyrics, and Steve, you talked with him around Balance and how he was complaining about Amsterdam. He complained to me about the same stuff, and here it finally come to a head. It just reached the peak, and it's all centered around this song Between Us Two. And the eureka moment is like when he's talking to you and he says like, here, let me play it for you, and this is on acoustic guitar though, and you'll play it here and we'll hear it. And it's like, oh my God, that song is actually Between Us Two. So that just blew my mind. It's because that's such a historically important song in the whole Sammy Hagar, the end of that era. And it's also, come to find out, it's also very symbolic of the beginning of the Gary Cherone era. And I was talking with somebody else here just in the aftermath of that saying like, I can't believe it. This song is Between Us Two. And I'm playing them little pieces with this Gary Cherone vocal on it. And this guy's telling me like, I know someone who's really good friends with Gary. Let me ask him about that song, because I'm under the impression that that's not recorded for 1999, but that was recorded much later, at least as far as Gary's vocals goes. And he just had this instrumental track. And that's the amazing thing about what Ed tells you is like, I've got the instrumental track and I'll play it for you later, So I come to get the information from this other person. I'll tell you who it was. It was Gary's manager. I asked a question. I said, was this song actually recorded in 1999? And Gary's manager says, no. Here's the story behind that. It was recorded in 1996 before Gary joined the band. And that song was one of 3 songs, instrumental tracks that Ed gave to Gary like the first week that he was in Van Halen. And it was his job to come up with lyrics and melodies and stuff to go with it. Now to backpedal a little bit about Between Us Two, again, not only is it famous for being the end of the Sammy era, but it was also the song that was being touted. In your interview, Stephen, it said it's being touted as Van Halen's Stairway to Heaven. These people are just going gaga for it and everything. So anyways, it's fascinating that it was recorded in 1996. That instrumental track that we're hearing that Alex released is from 1996. And I can't say the exact reason why Gary recorded the vocals much, much later. That's a very personal thing. So I'm going to have to just leave it at that. But the vocals that I heard has nothing to do with any official Van Halen release or anything like that. It's just something that Gary did on his own. So a very, very different thing. But it just blew my mind because that recording you got, Stephen, it put all the pieces together of the puzzle, and it just opened up this whole world that us historians would not have known otherwise if you hadn't been there to record that, which is just amazing.
That is so cool. So the other side of that, Chris, is if somehow I didn't send you the audiobook or you'd never heard it, none of this ever comes out unless somebody had heard, the unfinished track, Alex's and this track, and said, oh, it's the same song, but none of this backstory gets done. So my question, so this song was never meant for Sammy? Sammy was already gone?
No. Well, it was really, it was meant for Sammy. And this is the whole story behind the whole thing. This is it. I love this, Steve, because the story that you got from Ed is it's so classic. It's like it's comedy and it's drama. And, but Ed's like, he's bitching with you about Sammy, and just like, damn it, it's like, the producer of Twister, Jan de Bont, has got, he's talking about humans being and everything like that, and it's like, these, Sammy keeps on coming up these lyrics, and it's like, and then, Jan tells us not to do a song about tornadoes or storm chasing or anything like that, and behind Ed's back, Sammy goes to Jan and says like, hey, can you send me like a sheet or a page of a bunch of like, tornado terms and stuff like that? And then Jan calls Ed up and says like, what the hell's going on? And like, Ed's like, I don't know, and then he gets these lyrics from Sammy. It's like, skies turning black, knuckles turning white, heading to the hot zone, and then I wish somebody out there, I hope the guy who did the interview with Sammy has the audio of that, because it'd be just great to cut it back, because Sammy's response was like, no, it wasn't that. It was headed to the suck zone. And it's like, okay, suck zone, I guess allegedly is some sort of storm chaser term of some sort, but the whole world doesn't know that. They're just going to think, oh, we're headed to the suck zone. What a great thing to say about, just I can see the critics hopping on that. Yeah, Van Halen sure hopped onto the suck zone with that one, as it will do. But it's hilarious. But anyways, the Between Us Two song is mentioned in the interview, and Ed talks about how Sammy wrote these lyrics, and Sammy said his song title was Closer to You. And Ed didn't like Sammy's lyrics, so he sent the song over to Bruce Fairbairn, who they were working with on the Twister music, for that soundtrack. Fairbairn rewrites a whole new set of lyrics, and Ed loves them. He thinks, "Oh, these are really good," and like sends them over to Sammy, and Sammy's like, I don't like this, man. The guy's trying to get in and on songwriting credits, and he's trying to get in on our game, and you should just tell him to fuck off, And so tension. Ed loves it, He loves this whole new Between Us Two title and everything. Sammy wants his Closer to You lyrics. So for some reason, I'd have no idea why, Ed sends the song over then to Glenn Ballard. And Glenn Ballard, I don't even know who actually recorded this instrumental version, if it was Bruce Fairbairn or if it was actually Glenn Ballard. And I'm leaning more towards Glenn Ballard by the sound quality of it and everything. And it sounds different than what Fairbairn did with them for the Twister soundtrack, which is a lot bigger, much more heavier and bigger and everything. And this is a little bit more, intimate and everything. But anyways, Glenn Ballard writes a whole new set of lyrics, and Sammy just flips out, and Ed flips out, and they fight. And the next thing you know, Sammy's gone. So it's just amazing.
So conceivably, this is the nail in the coffin for them, because with Ed and I, we talked about it, and I've talked about it in the book. It's all about respect, and Sammy doing what he did, big disrespect, and Edward doesn't let go of that stuff easily, and that was kind of it, right? That was kind of the parting of the ways at that point.
Just amazing, yeah. And the thing that kills me about this all is like, okay, Alex has explained why he calls it unfinished and everything like that, and it's a nice story, but come on, Between Us Two? What a great title for his relationship with him and Ed. Oh my gosh, it's right there.
Yeah.
Exactly. Which is my next point with you, Chris. Did Alex know that this song was actually called Between Us Two, and he just titled it Unfinished? Or I mean, do you think he even ever heard the title before? Did Ed or Bruce or Glenn ever mention it to Alex? Is it possible that never happened?
I think it's possible. I don't think so. I mean, they were pretty tight. They were, involved with stuff. Ed had to be bitching about it. But yeah, it is a big mystery. I mean, I know, Alex does mention in the book about he was having problems with taking these benzos, these pills for his back pain, and he got addicted to those. And I think he might not remember a lot about that time. So I'm going to give him the shadow of a doubt here and say, or the benefit of a doubt here, and say that maybe he just doesn't remember that era at all, and he came across this instrumental. I mean, it's just crazy though that he says it was from the a different kind of truth sessions, which there's just no way. It doesn't sound right or anything, and is he trying to cover up something, or does he just plain not remember? It's very hard to say. I mean, I have said that, his book tells about as much. What he doesn't say in a book says as much as what he actually says in the book. And of course, there's this whole era of Sammy and Gary, of course, completely missing. And did he just not want to acknowledge that particular song's ties to, the end of Sammy, the beginning of Gary, basically?
Yeah.
It's a mystery.
And you bring up the same thing I thought about this. The second I heard that, I thought, oh my God, what a great title for his book. Or it could have been Brothers, Between Us Two. I mean, it was perfect. And it ties into the song, and the first song. But hey, what do we know, right? Yeah.
Exactly. And there was a quote, so I'll see if I can find it here. There was a quote from Alex's recent interview. I forget which one it was. It might have been, I want to say the one he did with Gary Graff, which I can't remember. I think it was in Billboard, I believe.
Yeah, right.
And yes, here it is. There's something between us that's just connected on a level that is beyond explanation. It's like, there's something between us two that's just connected on a level that is beyond explanation. That just summarizes the entire book. It's so genius. And it's like, what a missed opportunity. What a missed opportunity.
It really is. So Bruce Fairburn came up with the title. That wasn't Glenn Ballard.
That's correct. Okay. Yeah. So, but yeah, it's what a fascinating history. What and I wish that, Adam, thank you for talking with us, because I hope that, the word gets spread out there and that this becomes canon, because it should be the real story.
And had I known what I was sitting under, Chris, I would have released the thing under my own record title, and I would have made the money.
Yeah. Now, Stephen,
go ahead.
Did Ed mention the instrumental version? Did he play that for you? Do you remember?
No, he didn't. Or I don't think he did. And what's strange, and again, I don't want to give the book away, but by 96, when that interview happened, so I'm now going through the record company to get the interviews with Edward, right? The relationship that we had, where I kind of call and we do an interview, that it ended. And so for him to play that for me on a day, it was up at 5150 with all these other journalists there, and for him to play that for me, I thought was, wow, maybe we still are, maybe there still is this connection. I do not believe he ever played me the instrumental version. So again, just to clarify, Chris, so the version that you had, Gary is singing? There's vocals, everything?
Yes.
Wow.
And it's really, really, really good. It's like, when I heard that, I said, like, wow, if only Van Halen fans heard this, they would have an entirely different perspective about Gary's time in the band. Little did I know it wasn't recorded during his time in the band. It was recorded well afterwards, but it's still like Gary fits. He comes up with these beautiful lyrics. The melodies are awesome. He does these harmonies and everything, and it's just like, and he just the mix of his voice with those instrumental tracks behind him is just phenomenal. And of course, I was just blown away by the ending, the jam between Ed and Alex. And I'm really glad that Alex released that, because that is, priceless. That's really, something that the fans really deserve to hear. And think it's so wonderful that he released that for free. That's just an amazing thing. How un-Van Halen of a thing to do, to release this song to the greater public the day before the book comes out even. Wow.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. And you touched on it before. This is their Stairway to Heaven. Edward's playing and the changes and the sense of harmony that's going on there was, that was next level stuff. And it's funny, man. I like the Gary Sharon record. I realize a lot of people don't, but I think the guy was a great singer. He was a great lyricist, and given a chance to expand on those ideas and not having sort of Damocles hanging over his head all the time.
Right.
I think it really could have been the next Gary Sharon record really could have been special, but alas and alas, right?
The tracks that I heard were really good, and I'm down on my knees hoping that one of these days, Alex, Wolfgang, whoever is going to see the light and release that, because I understand that they submitted it to Warner Brothers two separate times, and got turned down both times. So they worked on the record. And the songs I heard are finished. They are done. They're complete. And here's a funny little detail. Now, I downloaded, the track when they put it up on the Van Halen website and put it into my iTunes. And I always go to organize stuff, and I might retitle things a little bit. In fact, this case, I put Between Us Two on there as a reference. Everything. But I'm looking at the little information notice, and it says there's like like for albums, it says how many tracks or whatever. And usually if it's just a single thing, there's not even anything entered in there, or it might say 1 of 1 or this said 7 of 8. So that was really fascinating, because it's like, were there plans to put this on an album at some point somewhere? Because it's track 7 of 8, and I can see it being a perfect, lead up to the final track on a record too, and sequencing. I can just see that, the way that song sounds. It's a perfect, just right before the ending. Either kick them real hard at the end, or just soothe them with something really soft, or either way. But it's just a perfect lead up to that.
Yeah, that's so cool. And is the version in the audiobook, are those changes pretty much what ultimately ended up on the track you heard with the vocals and stuff?
It's 100% identical. The backing track is 100% identical. I know it's been mixed, but separately, for release here, but it's identical in length. Every note that Ed plays is identical. Every drum fill that Alex plays is identical. It's 100% identical. So wow. It is that song. I know it verifies because of the story I got from Gary's manager that song is from 1996.
Yeah. And again, what was in the audiobook, Ed just kind of noodling, is pretty much the structure
that's exact.
of the song.
That's exact. Yeah, the intro. The intro. It's basically he noodles up for about a minute in the beginning, and then he goes into this acoustic guitar part, and that's what really kicks the song off. And that's exactly it. Oh man, it was so cool to hear that on your tape, because it's just like, oh my gosh, it's like there is 100% unquestionable verification that this song is between us two. No question.
So cool.
Yeah,
not a variation.
Yeah, the other difference is it might be just because of the tuning of the tape from the old days, but it's like a semitone up. That's the only difference.
Yeah, it is in a different key, but that's about it. Yeah, but that's it.
Yeah, and again, that could be me and my $50 cassette player, spinning faster or slower to change.
It's probably going slower. Probably the battery was dying, I bet. So.
Exactly. So what happens? We change the key.
Yeah, that's happened to me many a time.
Cool. That's so cool. Well, so Chris, I want to thank you for coming on, man. And I'm going to let you be the first to know this. There's about another, I think Adam said about another 30 or 45 seconds of the audiobook that's not in the audiobook of the track. So we'll get around to maybe putting that out maybe at the end of this podcast, or maybe we'll do a little separate podcast for it, man. But man, you open those doors. Seriously, not one other person has gone, oh yeah, that's the unfinished track. And it's weird. I mean, I don't know. Maybe nobody listened to it that closely. Maybe just nobody caught it.
I think it's serendipity, dude. You sent it to me right at the right time, because that was right when Alex was releasing those little snippets, and I was just completely. I like I said, I listened to that song constantly. That I got. I listened to that song all the time. So and when Alex released it, I said, "Oh, it's that," and now it's like, but now it's this. It's like it went through all these shifts, and now I found out the whole story. I was mistaken for so many times, and I've told a bunch of people this is from 1999. This is from the follow-up album, and I was completely wrong. But it's even cooler to find out it's actually from 1996, and it's between us two. Wow.
Exactly. And the reality of it is, I mean, who knows how early on Edward actually had that done?
Yeah, it's just because on the interview with you, Steve, he actually says when he's playing the riff, he goes, "Oh, this is something I had like 6-8 months ago." He goes, "That's why you can really remember it," because you hear him on this extended version. He's making a few little mistakes, like he's trying to remember how it goes.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. Cool. So, Chris, I've got another question for you. I know he talks about some of the lyrics from what Sammy first did. I think it was what Glenn wrote. He said, like, I want to see you. I want to know who you are. I want to touch your soul and get to know you. Now, do you know, was that the one that Gary used as well, or was that something totally different?
Gary wrote completely brand new lyrics. They're entirely different, but they fit, they work, they sound really good. It's a really great thing. And I'm hoping someday somebody somehow will see fit to release that version too, because it's great. It's really, I mean, you would not know that these things were recorded in entirely different decades. You would not even know. It just fits so well. It sounds like Gary to me, in the late 90s. He found the voice time machine, and went back and everything and did it. So it sounds good. Sounds really good.
And then so the lyrics that then Sammy came up with, which pretty much separated Van Halen, I guess, was diamond rings through your shining star. And so it's like, no,
right,
out of here.
Exactly. Again, that's why I love that era so much. You know, you guys, if you can ever find those older issues of the Guitar World, you know, with Steven's stuff, of course, it's all in Tonechaser, so he's got that whole stuff in there. But the other guy who interviewed Sammy, just to compare those two, just, you know, put them on your lap and let's go back between the two of them, the tit for tat and everything. It's just, oh, it's hilarious. It's just, you know, it's just rock and roll at its most Spinal Tap, glorious, infighting, you know, mania.
Yeah, right. Yeah, very cool.
Now, did you want to hear a little bit of the audio now? You got time, Chris?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So this is going back from when he first started talking about Twister.
So I guess around February or something like that, Jan DeBont called and asked if I would do some music for the movie. So Alex and I went down and watched it and got inspired immediately and wrote 3 pieces of music. One being another one that won't get put out until another singer sings it with different lyrics, or just never put it out, or actually instrumentally it sounds great.
What was that song called?
Between Us Two. You know, it's acoustic guitar though. Yeah, whatever. I'll play an instrumental version of it later. But six months since I played it. Anyway.
There you go.
Wow. That's it.
About 6 months since I played it. I'm sorry, Chris.
Oh no, that's it. That's just it. I mean, he stumbles. It's great to hear Ed being human, you know, humans being, you know, but it's that's it. That's just it's so amazing to hear all the rest of that. I mean, just what little piece that you had in the book, in the audio book, you know, just it tells it. But now it's like that confirms it even further. It's it. That's Between Us Two. Wow. You know?
Yeah. It's so cool. It's so cool. I can't even remember, honestly. I can't even remember him playing that at the interview, you know. But
well, so the funny thing is, when I first started editing your book, the audio book, Steve, I remember hearing this, and then when I first heard Unfinished, I thought, gee, I know this, but I couldn't figure out where. It wasn't until you said, Chris, hey, this is what it is. There we go. That's what it is.
And that's because you had Unfinished fresh. I've had Unfinished Between Us Two, you know, vocal version for 3.5 years. Like I said, I've been living with it, you know, constantly, and it's just I just, you know, relishing it. You know, I love that, you know, and it's really cool to hear it instrumental because you hear much more of the nuances of Ed's playing and everything that are, you know, in the background a little bit more.
Right.
And so it's also kind of unnerving a little bit because I'm so used to this vocal version that I have. And when you hear it without that, you go like, wait a second, you know, something's missing, or is it? I don't know, you know.
Yeah. It's really nice chords. I try to figure out roughly what it is. I know it's around here somewhere. Just really weird chords that he uses.
Yeah.
Wow.
Actually, that one kind of chord that he shifts to when he goes from that like C, you know, kind of formation thing is actually, it's a little bit more complex than that. So
that's why it's easy.
yeah, exactly. And the you know, the other way you can really tie it into that era, at least to the mid to late 90s, is the use of this Fernandez sustainer throughout it, you know, Ed's guitar tone, even the way he's playing. I've always had this theory about, it's not even a theory, it's the truth about Ed. Ed would get a brand new toy and he would put it to use immediately. So it's like you know, after they recorded the demos and he went out and he got an MXR flanger and all of a sudden he's writing Ain't Talking About Love and Atomic Punk, you know, and these are all songs that feature the MXR flanger really heavily in them. Around the time of 1984, I know he got this Bayet Citron Shark baritone guitar, and we haven't figured out where he's used that yet. And I bet there's unfinished tracks or unreleased tracks lurking there in 5150 that were recorded for 1984 that featured that, somewhere. So, but he always, you could kind of go through his progress. Ed got this instrument, and here it is on this record. You could always time to when he acquired something that way.
Yeah.
Interesting. So that's the Fernandez sustainer on the that I hear on the unfinished track.
Yeah. All the kind of the feedbacky, long sustained notes and everything, and it's almost like an ebow, and those kind of fading notes
exactly.
and everything that are kind of like almost like a flute or something or a horn. That's all that. And of course, he used it on, I think the first recorded song he put out was Me Wise Magic that has the sustainer on it. So that's, obviously 95, right around that era and everything. And of course, it's on the Twister tracks as well. And then, of course, it's on Van Halen 3, and Ed used that. Basically, that was one of his main toys to play with all the way through the 2004 tour. And then he kind of stopped for a bit. But of course, he didn't really record anything. It does pop up in little bits and places on A Different Kind of Truth as well.
Well,
interesting. Yeah. I mean, that's the Tonechaser in him, right? Yeah, he'd find it. He'd get a new gadget, and how can I make this work for me, and how do I apply that? It's a pretty amazing kind of a thought process. As a painter, well, I got this new color blue. How do I make this work for the sky, Van Gogh or whatever? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Really
exactly.
Yeah. Very cool, man.
So pretty much after this, he goes into talk. This is in that audio book where he talks about how Sammy, he come in, gave it a go, and he said that how Sammy tried and tricked him into, recording this one more song for Van Halen, and which is this song here we're talking about. So, like I said before, it really is like the end of the Sammy era through unfinished, between us two.
Yeah, between us two. Yeah.
It is, and look, meager songwriter than I am, I can understand about, somebody came in and they wanted to write a song or something. I thought I was writing the lyrics, and, part of me can understand that. But by that time, it's like, I don't know. Sammy, you've written the lyrics for all these records. Let some, bring this other set of lyrics in and interpret them, and maybe that becomes a challenge. I mean, look, I wasn't there. I don't know. But, have everything fall apart, based on something like one set of lyrics. I don't know.
It was a progression, though. I mean, I'm sure you may recall, like with Amsterdam, how he just hated that. It's like, I write this great riff, and then Sammy comes up with these lyrics, and it's about like where my brother and I are from, and it's a party song, and he was just livid about that. I just remember, he bitched to you, and he bitched to me about it. So he obviously didn't mind making that public,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Now, the other thing that it does mention in your interview, Steve, which comes a little bit with the unfinished, he talks about how when Roth come in and he says, "Hey, we've got this other song, but Sammy thinks it's finished, but we think it's It doesn't say unfinished. He says we don't think it's finished." So it's interesting he did say that, as well. But I'm guessing, like what you guys said before, I don't think Alex would have known that, unless he read Tonechaser.
Yeah. Well, he may have, actually, judging by his book. He seemed to read our books. So. No more comment about that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I guess so the great thing is coming out of all this, the audio is all the audio book and the content, and then also the backstories of brothers is all in this book as well. So any Van Halen out there, definitely go out and get these two, the full true stories.
Yes. That's Ed's side of the story. So Ed's different kind of truth.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So
very cool.
No, thank you again, Chris, for doing this, and Steve.
Thanks, guys. So I appreciate good to talk to you, Steve. It's fun to do this. So we'll have to do some more of this stuff sometime.
Absolutely, Chris. So just sort of in closing, Chris, so what are you working on now? What's going on?
Oh, I'm just doing Guitar World random stuff, not too much. So I'm trying to kick around a few book projects, but it's hard to get traction right now. I'm hoping that actually this Alex book's by selling so darn well. It's selling better than the Van Halen 3 album or A Different Kind of Truth, which is weird for a book. So I'm
Wow.
hoping that gets some more interest in more music books because Brad and I have an agent, and it's getting harder and harder to pitch music books now because it's the market's not there like it used to be. So it's a
Yeah.
battle. It's a fight.
Yeah. No, it's sad, and obviously, that, Guitar Player folded up shop, the print version. That was terrible.
Yeah, that's I read so much of your work there, Stephen, and I ended up working there. It was my first job as a guitar journalist, and it's just very sad to see that. It's very much an end of an era. I grew up with it.
Yeah.
I waited, like when I got your Jimmy Page cover story, I was just like, oh, like it was just a revelation for me as a kid, to get that information. That was the Bible. That was our Old Testament,
Yeah, it was. Those are fun days.
Yeah.
Days.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure, man.
Mm.
Well, Chris, that's great, man. Thank you so much for finding some time and unearthing these Van Halen artifacts. If Adam doesn't, kind of listen to you on Jeff's show, and I don't send you the audio book, and
Yeah.
It's the puzzle
none of the
pieces.
secrets get revealed, right?
It's all interconnected, it's all like
Absolutely.
all this stuff comparing notes and everything. So, and it's
Yeah.
the wonders of like the computers and the internet and all this stuff that we can communicate about this stuff. Whereas Stephen, I know how much writers work in isolation,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, that's great, Chris. Thank you so much, man. Appreciate your time. Appreciate your insights. And you take care and
You too.
write all the good words. Okay, buddy?
Okay, sure. Well, you too. Thanks, Adam.
Thank
Thank you, Chris. Thank you very much.
I'm trying to see how I can get out. Oh, there we go. Okay. There's the door. 1 foot out the door. See you guys.
All right, that was awesome. Having Chris on to find out all that information about the song. And yeah, so over to you, Steve. What do you think?
Yeah, no, it was amazing, and I think when Chris first came on, I reached out to him earlier today and just said, hey, I'm going to be on with Adam Roach, and he said, well, I know those interviews usually go on for hours. He says, I don't have that long. I said, Chris, just come on for a few minutes. I think Chris actually enjoyed himself. I think, I think he stayed longer than he thought he would. But no, that was fantastic having Chris on, and just, you think of how all those pieces come together, and, you, Adam, hearing Chris on Jeff Goebel's show and mentioning this little piece of music, and that triggering in your head, hey, that sounds familiar. Where did I hear that? And, since you did all the editing for the audiobook, you recalled that little bit, because I didn't remember any of it. I didn't remember Edward playing any guitars for me in that 96 interview. And we touched on it earlier, by 96, and I don't want to give the book away, so go out and buy the book, everybody. But, our relationship had shifted. So for him to sit there and start playing this for me on this day of interviews where there were a lot of other journalists up at 5150, this was a day of interviews set aside by Warner Brothers, was pretty amazing, So, it was incredible to hear that. And yes, the fact that Chris had all this knowledge and he had lived with the track with the vocals and everything, and then he recognized it again from the track that Alex released, titled Unfinished, is pretty amazing.
Yeah. Really,
and
so when you think about it, I know when you sent me the tapes to edit the audiobook, I remember you saying that you hadn't really listened to a lot of them, back to the day. So really, the last time you would have heard that would be 1996. That little piece of music. It went exactly.
Exactly. So everybody who, honestly, I've listened to a lot of the audiobook, but I really haven't listened to it top to bottom. It's a little difficult for me to listen to it. Not because I don't think it's good, because I really think it's wonderful. and I actually hear my voice and I go, wow, I sound good, and you're editing, and I hear Edward's voice and fantastic. It's just hard to do. It's just, I don't know what it is. The same thing about my writing. It's hard for me to go back and read my writing. But yes, so that was like 96 since last time I heard that. Right. So that's, if I could do the math, many, many decades ago. Yeah. It is pretty amazing. And I think just judging by Chris's excitement about hearing this little piece of audio and all of the Van Halen secrets that it's unlocked, you and I have decided to give buyers of the audiobook a bonus.
Yep.
Right?
That's awesome.
So for those of you who have the audiobook, you have heard this little snippet that Alex has called Unfinished, but which we all now know is called Between Us Two. And there's about 15 seconds of Edward playing that song on his electric acoustically. Well, there's about another 30, 45 seconds that we didn't put in the audiobook that we're going to allow you to hear. So for those of you, yes.
That's great.
So for those of you who want to hear this really, really rare little bit of Edward playing guitar on this song that has gone through a lot of permutations, and as you've heard Chris describe, going from Bruce Fairbairn to Glenn Ballard to Gary Sharon and Sammy and everything that it created and broke apart, we're going to allow you to hear the entire piece that Edward played that day for me back in 1996. So if you buy the audiobook moving forward from today, you will hear this as a bonus track at the very end of the audiobook. And for those of you who already have the audiobook, you will automatically have the bonus track available to you. And I think you guys are going to freak out. It's amazing. It really is extraordinary when you think of the history of it and when it was recorded and sort of representing the bridge of what could have been the real Gary Sharon era, and sort of the collapsing of the bridge between Edward and Sammy. So it really is an important track. Yes. And so there's no reason why, if you don't have the audiobook, you shouldn't go out and get it now. It all comes for the same price. So go out there and get your audiobook, and you can find the audiobook on mysoundwise.com. And I know you'll love this track. I think it's really remarkable, and I know you guys will love it.
Yeah. And the other awesome thing is, I just noticed recently with Soundwise as well, a lot of people have been commenting, and you've been replying to these people through Soundwise as well, how much they're enjoying like different chapters or things they're learning about Eddie that they didn't know before. So I think that's great as well to have the audiobook and the interaction between you.
It's fantastic. That's why Soundwise, when I came across Soundwise, actually, I didn't know this. Maybe you had told me later on. I didn't know that Soundwise provided that function. I could not understand anything. I said, Adam, figure it out, dude. Here are the tapes. Figure it out. But yeah, it really is an amazing function to allow me to interact with these people. And a lot of times, to be honest, I'm still trying to look, to see where their reply is. And sometimes I can find them, sometimes I don't. So if I haven't replied, it doesn't mean that I'm still not, loving you guys responding to it. I do love hearing from you. So guys, keep sending in the responses, and hope you guys are digging the audiobook. And the audiobook even got better, I believe, with the addition of this little bit of audio. So
thanks, Steve, and we'll catch up real soon. Make sure everyone goes out and gets the audiobook.
Thank you so much, Adam. Thanks, everybody.
All right. See you later.